Hello, Louisiana, and welcome to Odds and Ends for this week. It's Monday, October the 25th. We're well into the fall. We are well into football season, and we have a Monday show to remember today. The New Orleans Saints make their first appearance on Monday Night Football of the regular season anyway, and they are up in Seattle tonight playing the Seahawks. We will get to that. We will get to the college and pro results from the weekend. We'll talk a little World Series. We'll talk a little Caesars Sportsbook. We'll talk just about everything for you here on bet.nola.com's weekend recap show. It is Odds and Ends. It is brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. And I am Zach Ewing with Jim Derry and Devin Jackson. Guys, how are we doing?
Are we going to talk about big bucks?
We might talk about big bucks. It's not. I mean, the weekend's not over yet, so I thought we'd wait. But I know you want to talk about it.
It's just positive too. I told you I was just lulling you guys to sleep. That's all.
I'm struggling, man. So I might need to start following you on big bucks. I've had a couple of bad weeks in a row. Devin just keeps chugging along, though.
It's amazing. An interesting story about Devin is I looked at his college football picks, and I bet on one of his 5 college football picks. He went 4-1. So guess which one I bet on.
You don't even have to say it, man. You don't even have to say it. I swear, every week, Devin, I look at your picks and I go, I kind of like that one. That one I disagree with. I don't think. And then they all go 4-1 or whatever. So we just need to stop questioning you.
Yeah, for whatever reason, college, that's just been my calling card. So maybe I just need to stop doing the big NFL game of the week, because every time I do that just never hits. But
tell me. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Devin.
I was just going to say that the college, I mean, for whatever reason, I'm just getting them this year. I don't know what it is, but I don't know.
Hit them all.
I had a friend tell me the other day that he thought the NFL's been easier to bet on this year. It's been less predictable than usual. I said, what are you talking about? The Jets beat the Titans like 2 weeks ago. What's predictable? And then they turn around and beat the Bills and the Chiefs like drums. Well, they didn't beat the Bills like a drum, but they beat the Bills and then they killed the Chiefs. What's predictable about any of this? The Titans holding the Chiefs to 3 points? What are you talking about?
The Saints wiping out the Packers and then getting blown away by the Panthers.
And losing to the Giants.
The Giants.
Yeah.
Exactly. That makes a lot of sense.
The Cardinals being 7-0. Yeah, everybody predicted that.
Everyone thought that.
What are we talking about? Not predictable. I mean, it's been predictable. It's been anything but. Speaking of which, there's a big game tonight in Seattle. The Saints are back in action. They've had a full 14 days off. It's about the longest layoff you could have for an NFL team. They had the bye week. Now they play on Monday night. They are 4-point favorites against the Seahawks and Geno Smith. This number was as high as, I want to say, 5.5 at one point, and it's come down. It was at 5 for sure. It might have even ticked up to 5.5 at one point, but it's down. The over-under is way down. It's supposed to be stormy tonight. That bomb cyclone that hit the Sunday night game last night, I guess, is moving up the coast, and it might be rainy and windy in Seattle this weekend tonight. So it'll be an interesting game. Without making picks, because we'll save that for the end of the show. But what are your guys' thoughts, Devin, on this matchup tonight?
The Saints have to start fast. I mean, they can't. This is not the game to come out sleepwalking in the first half, because the elements are already going to be a factor, and you can't give any cheap turnovers. You can't start like you did the Washington game, because they were able to recover and get a long touchdown and be able to get the Hail Mary at halftime. So they were able to get a couple big plays, but they have to start quickly against Seattle, because if you let that team hang around, we saw that against the Steelers last Sunday night when they played each other. The Seahawks were able to kind of stick around and make that a game and nearly pulled it out at the end. So you got to start fast if you're the Saints. You got quite a few players back from injury, not everyone back, but you got to get those guys kind of involved early on and get them kind of going and then just be consistent throughout the game. I think that's the biggest thing with the Saints. If they play a poor first half, they'll play a better second half. If they play a solid first half, the second half is kind of inconsistent. So that's why I think with the Saints, they have to be consistent and come out and play fast.
Yeah, but we talked about a couple of weeks ago, hey, is Sean Payton taking the reins, loosening the reins on Jameis Winston a little bit? He's getting some offensive linemen back tonight. He still doesn't have Mike Thomas back or Traquan Smith. But I don't know that tonight's the night to do that anyway with the weather, with Seattle's offense hamstrung the way it is. Jim, is this another Alvin Kamara game? They're all Alvin Kamara games, but
yeah, I think Traquan could be back. I think he's 50-50.
Did practice limited, yeah, so he's questionable.
So what I think tonight is look, I think these two teams are both kind of on the same level as the teams we saw last night with Colts and Niners. And as we saw, the team to me that makes the worst mistake last is going to be the one that loses. Indianapolis overcame some early turnovers, I believe 3 of them early on, but they were able to overcome that later on. San Francisco made some big mistakes at the end. And in this kind of weather, it's going to be a mess. And there are going to be turnovers. And I would put the over-under on turnovers at 3.5. So you can bet that whatever way you want. So whoever makes the worst mistake last is going to lose. And I know Saints fans hope that's not them. I think it's going to be a really close one.
Yeah, and that over-under worries me because my last Big Bucks pick of the week is I got it at 43.5, but under 43.5, it's now 41.5. But turnovers can kill you if you bet. Just like happened last night, that game went over because turnovers set up some points, and
right.
Those things can happen. What you want is punts and missed field goals and things, and if you get turnovers, all of a sudden, that can start to create some points. Hey, if you're interested in sports betting, first of all, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave some comments. We'd love to see it. And in addition, you can now sign up for the Caesars Sportsbook app in Louisiana. We're not quite to sports betting yet, but we are to the point where you can get ready for it. So go to NOLA.com/Caesars, either on the computer or on your mobile device. If you sign up today, you get a $100 free bet when sports betting launches. That's NOLA.com/Caesars. Exciting news there, and we're certainly ready for that. And we have a big week for you as well. We have odds and ends today. We have the fantasy roundup tomorrow, of course. We have At the Book on Thursday. And then Jim Derry, a big week of Datitude Podcasts. I know you have one out today previewing the Monday night game. You'll have one tomorrow recapping the Monday night game. And then on Wednesday, David Baker from the Pro Football Hall of Fame will be on.
I'm thrilled about that. I actually recorded the interview this morning, and I expected it to be 20, 30 minutes, and it turned into an hour. He just had so many great things to say. And for him to be able to come on, and he talked so much about New Orleans, a city that he loves, obviously as the former Arena Football League commissioner. He helped, along with Tom Benson, had a very close relationship with Tom Benson, and helped bring the Arena Football League Arena Bowl here 2 years in a row. It was actually the first major sporting event to take place in New Orleans following Hurricane Katrina. So we talk about that. And then again, tomorrow, we talked with Mike Triplett briefly. We have 2 short shows today and tomorrow, and then Wednesday's a little bit longer like the usual Datitude. But we do have a very busy week for all of us this week here at bet.nola.com.
Yeah, so check out bet.nola.com for all of that coverage for the Datitude podcast and for all of our video shows. Like I said, the fantasy roundup tomorrow. And if you want to sign up for Caesars Sportsbook, get our special sign-up bonus. It's NOLA.com/Caesars. And get that done as soon as you can, because we do think betting is going to start very soon in person, probably within the next week or 2 in person. And then it'll be a few more weeks before you can bet mobile, but we are getting there. I know we've all been frustrated. Listen, we're in the business, so we're as frustrated as anybody that this is taking so long, but Hurricane Ida didn't help anything. The Louisiana State Police are the ones who need to vet all of these sports books and approve them, and they were busy, obviously, with Ida cleanup and aftermath. And so it's certainly a worthwhile excuse. We are getting there, and we ask you to go to NOLA.com/Caesars and check that bonus out. In the meantime, let's recap the weekend. We'll start in college football, where in Oxford, Mississippi, LSU scored the first touchdown, and then things kind of went south from there. Ole Miss really dominated the second and third quarters of that game and took control. It ended up being close. Guys, I'll be the first to admit it. I had a terrible gambling weekend, especially on the college side, which I've been 53% in college football for the past 7 years. And so this is different for me. I'm way under 500. In fact, I've probably lost a whole percent. I'm probably down to 52% over the last 8 years now. Just getting killed. Illinois beating Penn State in 9 overtimes, and it was still a touchdown under the total at 20-18. Iowa State, another top 10 team loses. That's Oklahoma State, but they were actually underdogs in that game and covered. Pitt beats Clemson. If the ACC season ended today, you'd have Pitt versus Wake Forest in the ACC title game, just like we all expected. And then Oregon and yeah, exactly, just what the TV networks want for that 11 a.m. kick. And then Oregon and Notre Dame beat the Southern Cal teams, and both kind of stay on the periphery of the college football playoff discussion. They're both going to need help to get there, but they're both still in it with one loss. And, of course, Oregon's got the big win over Ohio State. Jim, what stuck out to you on the college slate this weekend?
Oh, man. I talked about it on Datitude today. There's so many things wrong with college football, and I know both you guys are bigger college football fans than you are against the NFL. There are so many things wrong with college football, and the Illinois-Penn State game just proves how stupid the overtime rule is in college football. Let's get to the third overtime and have one-play drives. Then we get to go all the way to the other end and do it all over again. And just how stupid. I mean, it's an overreaction from the LSU Texas A&M game. I get it.
They tried to fix it. They made it worse.
It's way worse. And it just is it signifies how many things are wrong with college football, how good college football could be, but they continue to screw it up over and over and over again.
You know, it's interesting, though. I was thinking about this from a gambling perspective, and this is an extreme example because the game went to 9 freaking overtimes and was still under the total. But
right.
It used to be in college football, if you got overtime, especially if you got multiple overtimes, the over was going to hit every single time. Because you're piling up touchdowns and field goals over and over and over again, and there was just no way, unless you were 30 points under the total, you had any chance if you had the under. But now that once you get to that third overtime, you're only adding 2 points per team. Just purely from a gambling perspective, that's a mental adjustment that I've had to make, is that, hey, overtime doesn't necessarily mean that you're going over the total. And again, this is an extreme example, but it was just insane. Devin, you're a Big Ten guy. What the hell, man?
I wish I had words. Listen, I watched that entire overtime session, and it, like you said, Jim, it just confirmed that the overtime rules are horrible. I mean, in theory, it sounds like a good idea. Like, okay, this will get the game over quicker. But when you have two offenses that were as bad as they both were on Saturday, and just it was just the play calls that they were making. They were like running the ball straight up the middle from the 3-yard line. Like, they tried trick plays. Penn State dropped the trick play. It was just like both teams were just trying to lose that game the best way they could. And it was just bad football all around.
Zach, if Iowa and Penn State had gone into overtime, they might still be playing.
Man, Wisconsin plays Iowa this weekend, so hopefully somebody scores points at some point. We don't go 0-0, 0-0 at overtime. We'll give it a soccer term. I mean, like so. And listen, the team that plays like this the most of any team in the country is probably Georgia. So you can't sit on an SEC mountain and say, oh, look at those, pathetic Big Ten offenses, because Georgia will make any offense look pathetic. But it's just like, something's got to be done. Something has to be done. And I don't know. Again, I don't know what the answer is, but one thing I thought of, and again, I'm a soccer fan. I know people like to roll their eyes at the idea of a tie. But if the thing is tied after 5 overtimes, right, maybe it's a tie. We used to have ties in college football. What is so bad about a tie?
That's exactly what I said on Datitude. I think that just play 3 regular overtimes if you want. 3 regular overtimes. Forget the 2-point conversion, whatever. Just play 3 regular overtimes. If it's still tied after 3 overtimes, it ends in a tie. I hate ties as much as anyone. They're dumb. I especially hate them in the NFL, where they get paid millions of dollars. They should play longer than 10 minutes, at least play the regular 15-minute period. But, yeah, I mean, that's the way you solve the problem. And they used to just end the game in ties, so it's better than that. But I'm not a fan of going from the 25. I wish they would just take the NFL rule, and if you want to play 10 minutes, fine, but let them play a regular game for 10 minutes, and if it's not over, it's a tie.
Yeah, and I mean, in a sport where the margins are so thin anyway, where, talking about college football, where one loss can cost you your season.
Right.
2 losses certainly can. A tie can be a great divider. I mean, you all of a sudden you look at it. It used to be this way in college football. Jim, you would know better than we would, because I was 10 years old when they.
Yeah.
I was 10 years old when they abolished the tie. But it's like, if you have a team that's 9-1-1 or 10-1-1, that's
right.
different than a team that's 11-1. That's different. They had a tie. That's a blemish on your record. And so to me, it makes sense to leave that in the game or introduce it. So that's one possible solution. Anyway, I didn't mean for this segment to turn into a rant on the Illinois-Penn State game, but I guess there was no other way for it to go. Oregon and Notre Dame, real quick, which one of those two more likely to make the playoff in your guys' eyes?
Probably
Devin's a
Oregon.
college football expert.
I would say probably Oregon. Notre Dame's resume just doesn't look great. They beat Wisconsin, but Wisconsin really hasn't turned out to be anything special. They lost to Cincinnati. They barely beat Toledo. So, I mean, their resume is pretty weak. I think Oregon would be more likely to get in than, say Notre Dame, but neither of them are guaranteed at this point.
They both need a lot of help.
Yeah, the Pac-12 is just basically knocking each other off. So Oregon has to win out, and then they need like Michigan State, Ohio State all to lose like twice, I think, for them to get in.
And Alabama to lose 3 times.
Yeah,
maybe
they need a lot. They need a lot of help.
The other interesting thing from this weekend is that all of a sudden the Heisman race, which looked like for the last month, it's been a 2-horse race between Bryce Young and Matt Corral. Those 2 guys are still in it, but here comes Kenny Pickett at Pitt. Here comes C.J. Stroud at Ohio State, who just thumped Indiana. They look like the best team in the country right now, at least this side of Georgia. In fact, if I had to pick it right now, I'd think the national championship might end up being Georgia versus Ohio State. Even though Ohio State has that early loss, they are rolling right now. Nobody looks like they can touch them. So the Heisman race is wide open again. I mean, all of a sudden, college football, very intriguing as we head into the last week of October and then a big November. Pretty much for anybody besides LSU. They just looked flat. They came out good against Ole Miss, but once they got, kind of pushed back and hit in the mouth a little bit, they looked flat. They looked like we kind of expected them to look after the announcement of Coach Orgeron not coming back. Jim, you put Chris Blair on the spot on your podcast on Datitude a couple weeks ago and said, will LSU make a bowl? And understandably, as he's a university employee, he did not give you a direct answer, but I'm asking you for a direct answer. LSU has 4 wins. They play ULM, so we'll give them that one. That's 5 wins. They need another win somewhere to make a bowl. They've got Arkansas, Alabama, and Texas A&M. Do they make a bowl?
No, they're not. They're not going to. I said after the Florida game, I mean, as LSU fans were on a high and happy about where they were, and I said, that's great, but they're not going to win another SEC game. I don't think they could. If they are going to win one, it's going to be Arkansas, because Arkansas is kind of on the same downward trajectory. So they could potentially win that one. It wouldn't surprise me. But I put their odds at less than 50-50 to win another SEC game.
Yeah, I think Arkansas is the one they've got to target. They're not beating Alabama. And Texas A&M suddenly looks like we expected them to look at the beginning of the season. I don't think they're beating Texas A&M. So I agree with you. Arkansas is really, if you're playing for a bowl game, if going to the Gasparilla Bowl or the Birmingham Bowl is worth something to you, that's the game you got to circle. You got to beat the Razorbacks at home, I think on November 20th or some whatever that is, whether that 3rd week in November. Let's get to the NFL.
Weed Eaters Bowl, baby. Poulan
Right.
Weed Eaters Bowl.
Any bowl is a good bowl, especially if you like sports betting. So let's check out NFL results for the week, since we're already going on way too long here. The big surprise of the day, as I mentioned, not just that the Titans beat the Chiefs, because I know some people were on that, but the Chiefs looked awful. Offensively, they looked awful. If you had told me the Titans were going to win this game 38-35, okay, Derrick Henry went off and it was a shootout and the Titans had the ball last or whatever, but 27-3, are you kidding me? And then the other takeaways for me, the Bengals absolutely thumping the Ravens. That's a game that got away from the Ravens just a little bit. It probably wasn't that lopsided, but the Bengals really made a statement either way. And then I'll throw out the Raiders. They surprised me. Derek Carr was 31 of 34, 336 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. The guy is like in the MVP conversation. The Raiders might win the AFC West. I'm surprised by that. And then I'll also throw out there was 4 spreads of 8 points or more, or 5 of them actually, and the favorites went 4-1. The only one that didn't cover was the Rams against the Lions, but you had a lot of big spreads, and the favorites covered, Jim.
Did the Carr family text you before this segment?
No. Okay. 31-34. That's worth mentioning, right?
I know you're friends. I just want to. I'm completely kidding. What stuck out to me is this: when are people, experts, media people, whoever, us, going to realize that the Titans and the Bengals are good football teams? I realize the Titans have put up a stinker. They lost to the Jets. I get it. And people before the season started, I mean, we're talking about a team that went to the AFC Championship game and has potentially a top 5 all-time NFL running back and maybe potentially even higher than that. Their defense isn't great, sure, but neither was Kansas City's when they won the Super Bowl. And something's wrong with Patrick Mahomes, and something's certainly wrong with Andy Reid. They're not focused at all. They
got no offensive line either. The offensive line plays atrocious.
But they're completely unprepared. And Patrick Mahomes could come in before, and even if as bad as their O-line, whenever it was, he could find ways out. And now he's throwing interceptions, things that he never did before. Something is wrong there, and the Chiefs, to me, are really close to being done for the season. I mean, it's week 7, and we're saying I really think they're close to being done. If they don't change something soon. But the Titans and Bengals are really good football teams, and I would suggest people that watch this because they like to gamble on sports, go put a small wager on the Titans and Bengals to at least win the AFC Championship, because you can get them both at a fairly decent price, certainly a value.
Yeah, I mean, I would worry about the Bills, but other than that, is any team noticeably better than those two teams? In the AFC, I don't think so, especially not after yesterday. It's interesting. I mean, Devin, how about you? Takeaways from week 7 so far?
Yeah, I think with the Chiefs, I feel like it's kind of similar to what happened with the Packers prior to them making to the NFC Championship game a couple years ago, or a couple years in a row, that I think Patrick Mahomes is playing so much hero ball that he has to make big plays for them to even stay in games, because their defense is just easily the worst in the NFL. And he literally has to put up points every time he goes out to get a drive. So defenses are just sitting back and making them take the underneath stuff, and he doesn't want to take it. So that's kind of my takeaways with the Chiefs. But I would say I think – Sunday showed that the AFC is even more wide open than ever before. Obviously we had the years of dominance with the Patriots, the Colts when they had Peyton Manning, Broncos when they had Peyton Manning, and then also recently with the Chiefs. But this year, I think we're going to see a new AFC representative in the Super Bowl, and probably a team that we haven't seen in a long time. So I would not be surprised if the Titans were able to run the table and take home the AFC Championship. I just think that they have a formula to win. They know how to win games. They've done it the last couple of seasons, and while they don't have the best roster or the best defense, they find ways to win, and no one can stop their running game. So they found a formula to win, and honestly, it's hard to beat right now. So I think that's the biggest takeaway I see from this year.
Zach, do you think that the Bucs just exposed the Chiefs in the Super Bowl so bad that it put a beating on them, and that they haven't recovered from it? And
I mean, certainly it exposed the offensive line issues. And at the time, I just thought, well, that's the Bucs' elite front 7, and the Chiefs will get better over the offseason. But they didn't really. I mean, who did they add on the offensive line? It's still a problem. I think, to your point, Devin, that Mahomes is playing hero ball because he's back there running around for his life. In the Super Bowl, he made some incredible plays. I mean, remember the sideways throw he made? Like, just the fact that he got that off, and it's almost like, hey, I can do that. I'm Patrick Mahomes. I can go do that every time. Now he's committing a turnover every other drive. I don't know. I mean, I'll put it to you this way. I have a ticket on the Chiefs under 12.5 win total, and I really like that bet a lot before the season. I didn't expect it to be this bad, but I did think that there were some flaws in this team. And honestly, like I would have cashed that thing already had they not come back to beat the Browns in week 1 because they've already lost 4 games. I just need one more loss. I could cash that thing by Halloween. Well, I think they play Monday night next week, so it wouldn't be Halloween. But it's like they're a mess right now. And you're right. Given the depth of good teams in the AFC, they've got an uphill climb just to make the playoffs right now. I mean, you could name 7 teams that are going to make the playoffs or more likely to make the playoffs than Kansas City.
With that defense, Zach, with that defense, I don't see how they could possibly beat the Bills anywhere. I mean, they can't beat any team that has any kind of deep threat passing the ball. They're not going to beat them. And Cincinnati, I need to go look at the schedule, see if they play the Chiefs, because to me that would be a fascinating game because I think Cincinnati would beat up on them because Cincinnati's defense is at worst average. And I think they're better than that. And they have a really good pass rush. And I think they'd put clamps on Mahomes as well. And Cincinnati would Jamar Chase would go off on Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree. And the Chiefs still have to play Dallas. They still have to play the Chargers again. I mean, it's tough, man. They've already lost to the Ravens. They've already lost to the Titans. And they've already lost the Bills. And none of those games were close. So, well, the Ravens game.
They had to play the Raiders as well twice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So quite a week. If you're a Chiefs fan, it certainly looks like the AFC will have a new representative, not just in the Super Bowl, but they might not even make the playoffs. So elsewhere in the sports world, again, we want to encourage you to like, subscribe, or comment on our YouTube videos. Also want to encourage you, click the link below in the YouTube description, nola.com/Caesars. Sign up for the Caesars Sportsbook. Elsewhere in the sports world, we do have the World Series starting tomorrow in Houston, just down the road. And it is the Braves and the Astros, and all Southern World Series. I think for the first, if you consider Houston the South, I think for the first time ever, we have an all Southern World Series. The Astros are favored for the series at -150. I think they're just -120 for Game 1, which is Tuesday at 7:00 on Fox. Jim, this is, I mean, you got to like the Astros, but the way the Braves just seem like a team of destiny.
Told you last week, I guaranteed the Braves would win the World Series because I had tickets on the Dodgers, the Astros, and the Red Sox. So, yeah, it's going to happen. Look, I still like the Astros, and I got them at +230 about 2 weeks ago, and I couldn't pass it up. To me, they're the best team in baseball, as much as I hate to say it. They cover every angle. To me, and no offense, but I watched him as Cubs manager for so many years. Dusty Baker he does things in games that just make me go, huh? Still. But other than that, I think the Astros are by far the better team, but the Braves just have so much heart. It's hard not to root for them. Watching Ozzie Albies, just the excitement level that he comes through with game after game, and what they've been able to do. Just Freddie Freeman just hits home runs whenever it seems like he needs to, and Austin Riley is the next up and coming star. So they're so much fun to watch. But I still have to take Houston here. I think it's going to be a long series. I would be surprised if it doesn't go at least 6 games, and really 7 maybe. But if that's the case, Houston obviously has the edge because they play 1 and 2 and would be 6 and 7 at home. If Houston wins the first 2, I don't see how Atlanta wins, and I really think they will.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I'll defend Dusty. I mean, I think he's actually learned from his Cubs days and his Giants days. I think he's
72 years old.
Well, he's better with younger players. He's a little bit quicker with his hook on his starting pitcher when he needs to be. He's shown that in these playoffs. The Astros were in a bad spot in that ALCS and in Game 4, and I think he really pushed the right buttons to get them out. Devin, as an Atlanta guy, for the first time in your adult life, the Braves are in the World Series.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I honestly didn't think they were gonna make it past the Dodgers, but they handled them. I was very surprised by that. But it should be a very interesting World Series. I think, it's 2 teams that both got hot towards the end of the regular season and have played consistent ball throughout the playoffs. I mean, both of their series, they were able to end it before Game 7. So I think it'll be an interesting series. Definitely going to check out a couple games and see if Atlanta can pull it off.
Zach, it also goes to show that the pennant race between the Giants and Dodgers, I think, just took everything out of both of those teams. And I take nothing away from the Braves because the Braves are clearly the better team in the NLCS. But that pennant run and where the Dodgers and Giants had to win every night for like 6 weeks, and they both did, I think they exhausted all their energy in both of those.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just about to make that point. And then on top of that, had to play this emotional 5-game series against each other in the first round of the playoffs. Literally, Max Scherzer couldn't pitch in Game 6 because of fatigue. I mean, they were – Max Muncy was hurt. Justin Turner was hurt. Clayton Kershaw was hurt. They had nothing left. And again, that's not to take anything away from the Braves because it is a marathon, and you do have to be fresh at the end of it. And it just – the Dodgers and Giants sort of knocked each other out this year, I think. And so I follow – from my California days, I follow a lot of Dodgers fans and Giants fans on Twitter and Facebook. And the Giants fans, man, they were crowing like, hey, you can't win a World Series when it's a full 162-game season, which, it's a rivalry. They're going to have their fun. That's kind of a low blow in my mind because, again,
they've won 3 this century. Get over it.
Yeah, it was that was a race for the ages, and as it turned out, they both sort of it was like the Ali Frazier in the NL West, and the Braves just walked right through as George Foreman and become the NL champ. Let's look ahead quickly to the next week in football, and then we'll circle back to Monday Night Football to wrap things up here on Odds and Ends. College football, we didn't have a lot of marquee games last week. Boy, do we this week. Undefeated battle in the Big Ten, Michigan State. The world's largest outdoor cocktail party, or whatever the heck they call it now. Florida and Georgia. Really the last chance for Florida to make something out of this season. Ole Miss, Auburn, fantastic game. Penn State, last chance for them to make something out of this season, going to Ohio State. And then North Carolina, Notre Dame. I didn't even put Kentucky, Mississippi State up there, Wisconsin, Iowa. I mean, there are just a ton of good games. When you look at this list, Devin, what sticks out to you?
I would say the Auburn-Ole Miss game, the line. I don't know. I don't know about that. I think Auburn has been very up and down this year, and I just feel like that game is just going to be just insane football, and not in a good way. I think that it is probably going to be a high scoring type of game, and neither defense can make a stop. But I don't know if Auburn should be favored in that game. I know Ole Miss. I mean, their only loss this year is to Bama, and they play a tough Tennessee team. Arkansas took them down to the wire, but Auburn, I can't say who they've really beaten this year. I mean, they beat LSU, but LSU kind of gave that game away. Yeah. They beat Arkansas, but Arkansas is pretty much reeling after, back-to-back losses to Georgia and Ole Miss. So I don't really agree with that line, but that stood out to me. And then the Ohio State, Penn State line, I'm not super surprised. I thought it was going to open like 17, but 18.5 is a lot. But Ohio State has played very well.
Let's see. If Devin likes Ole Miss and Penn State, I am going to put together a parlay and put my mortgage on it, Jim, because the man knows what he's talking about.
If I did that, I would have to explain to my wife why we have to eat tuna fish for the next month. None of these here, and look, we know my record in college football this season, hence why I'm picking way more, almost all solely NFL games and big bucks picks. But there isn't a single line on this board that makes sense to me. Why is Michigan only favored by not a single line? Georgia should be favored by 3 touchdowns against Florida. They whooped up on Kentucky.
I agree with that. I don't get that one.
Ole Miss. Why in the holy heck is Auburn favored against Ole Miss, like Devin said? To me, Penn State, that line should be smaller, and Notre Dame should be a bigger favorite over North Carolina, in my opinion. So, in other words, expect all those things not to happen. I mean, but to me, the one that sticks out is it's not the biggest cocktail party. It's going to be the biggest butt-whipping party. I mean, Georgia is going to destroy Florida. I mean, Florida might not score. I mean, I'm not kidding. They could literally get shut out, and Georgia's going to score at least 14. That seems to me like such a lock that people should go at the house on Florida because I just said that.
I also think that that line is almost bound to move up. It's almost bound to. And so if you want Georgia minus 14, go get it now. Go get it now.
100%.
You can't do it in Louisiana, but yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. I can't.
You can go over to Mississippi and do it, I guess. NOLA.com/Caesars. Be ready. Be ready for when mobile betting is here. Get that app. But yeah, it's scary when the lines don't make sense. But a lot of those are very, very curious. NFL Week 8. This one is curious too. We thought maybe talking last week this line would be a little bit higher. The Bucs are minus 4.5.
It's already
the
5.
Dome. And again, these lines always change when one team's playing on Monday night, depending on how the Saints do tonight or if there's any injuries or anything like that. That line almost certainly will move a point one direction or the other. Probably the biggest game of the week besides that one is Thursday night. The Packers at 6-1 going to Arizona to face the 7-0 Cardinals in the desert. The Titans only 1-point favorites in Indianapolis. Pats, Chargers, interesting. And then Sunday Night Football is Cowboys and Vikings, Jim.
Yeah, similarly, say that 8 times fast, to what you said about the Georgia line. If you want it at 14, go get it. If you want the Packers at 3.5, like drive to Mississippi immediately. Like stop what you're doing. Tell your boss you're going home, or I know you want to watch a Saints game and tell them you got tickets or whatever. Oh, you can't have tickets in Seattle, but whatever. Leave. Go to Mississippi. Bet Green Bay right now. That line will not stay at 3.5. It'll be 2.5 at minimum by Thursday. And there are a couple lines on here that I kind of shake my head at as well. And again, if you want to bet on Tampa Brady, you better go do that quick because it's already up to 5, and it'll be, especially if the Saints lose or barely win, that line's going to be 6, maybe even as high. If the Saints lose, that might get to 7. So that's another line, but
I don't know about 7, but we'll see.
If they lose, it'll go to 7. If the Saints lose, which is entirely possible.
Well, speaking of which, that's a good segue as we try to wrap things up here. Saints Seahawks tonight, Monday Night Football. It's time to make our picks. By the way, I should mention this. If you're a Saints fan watching this from Seattle, and our beat reporter Amy just said she saw lots of Saints fans walking around the city today, they do have legal sports betting in the state of Washington. So if you want, you can go make these bets now. Download your app, NOLA.com/Caesars. Get the Caesars app. You can bet it in Washington. Saints Seahawks. How about a pick on the spread and the total from you, Devin? Saints -4 and the total 41.5.
I think I'm gonna take the Saints to cover. I think they'll do just enough to kind of keep Seattle at bay, and I think the game will be settled probably in the third quarter, early fourth quarter. Saints kind of take control and just kind of coast to the finish line. So I got the Saints covering. I think the game is going to hit the over. I think it's probably going to be like 23-17.
All right.
Well, that would be
under. Yeah,
that wouldn't be over. I'm trying to think.
Maybe you like the under.
Maybe I'll take the under on the total. 23-17.
All right. Jim, Saints -4, Seahawks +4.
Here's my bold prediction. I think this game goes into overtime. I think I'm talking like 17-17, and it wouldn't even surprise me if it ended in a tie. I don't like this game. It's not a good spot for the Saints. They're looking ahead to Tampa Bay. I'm not saying they can't. I think they will find a way to win, or it'll be extremely close. I just don't like this spot, though. I can't pick the Saints to cover 4 points because that long travel, and I realize they're coming out of a bye, but their record on the road after a bye in the Sean Payton era is 1-3, and they needed a miracle to get the 1. It was the Justin Tucker missed extra point. So just because they're on a bye, it doesn't mean that they're automatic win. I just don't like this spot. I know where their minds are, and I think they find a way to either win or I'm serious. I'm not kidding about a tie. It could happen. But whoever makes that last turnover is going to lose the ball game, and I hope it's Geno Smith and not Jameis Winston. I'll take the Seahawks +4, but I'd take the Saints on the money line. And as far as the over-under, it's kind of similar to last night. I would lean to the under, but I think there's going to be 3 or 4 turnovers, and that scares me when you're talking about an under because teams can get the ball on the 20-yard line.
Yeah, I'll start with that. I bet the under earlier in the week, and again, I got it at 43.5. I feel a little bit better because 42 is obviously a key number there. But I'll pick the over now because the more I think about it, especially with the weather, the turnovers, blocked kicks, bad snaps on punts, something stupid could happen, and it tends to push games over. And so I'll take the over as I'm talking about it in the moment. And I agree with you, Jim. I think it's a close game. I think the Saints find a way to win. But if you're asking me about the spread, I'd rather have the 4 points. So I'm going to take Seattle +4 at home. The Seahawks are winless at home this year. They're 0-3 at home, which is shocking for that franchise. And obviously don't have Russell Wilson, don't have Chris Carson. It's a little bit of a different team. But I would not be surprised at all to see the Seahawks sort of buck up and save their season, at least for now, tonight against the Saints. It's a tough spot for the Saints. They got the Bucks in 6 days, and they got this long trip, and they're coming off a bye, and it is a tough spot. So I'll take the Seahawks +4. I will take the over 41.5. Like, subscribe, leave comments on our YouTube page. Click the link below if you'd like to sign up, or just go to NOLA.com/Caesars. Get your $100 free bet. And Jim, one more time about the Datitude Podcast this week.
Yeah, big Datitude Podcast today. Obviously, we had Mike Triplett on previewing the game tonight. You can go check that out. Also, tomorrow we'll have Doug Moutson on of WWL. He'll be on to review the game after it's over. And then Wednesday, I'm really honored is I guess the best way to put it, that I asked him. I didn't think he would come on, but he did. Immediately said yes. David Baker, the retiring president of the Professional Football Hall of Fame and former Arena Football League commissioner, comes on to talk about his love of New Orleans and his knocks on the door, all of his experiences and his favorite knocks, I guess, and some of his experiences with all that. So besides the obvious one in Drew Brees, if there are any more Saints coming down the pipeline who could end up being in the Hall of Fame.
Now, that'll be really cool. Looking forward to that one. That's Datitude. You can find it on bet.nola.com and all podcast channels. And I will be back tomorrow with Spencer Urquhart for the Fantasy Roundup on bet.nola.com. And the three of us will be back on Thursday for At the Book. Until then, that's Jim Derry and Devin Jackson. This has been Odds and Ends. I'm Zach Ewing. Have a good one, everybody.